9 months ago, Julian's parents offered to cover my entire college tuition if I walked away from him, promising he'd get his trust fund early if he dumped me himself. When I looked at him, he shredded their contract into confetti and said, "I'm not a transaction." I didn't say a word. Last week, his father was arrested for tax fraud. Julian found me after chemistry class and slid $500 across the lab bench. "I need you to be my girlfriend for 3 weeks," he whispered. I had no idea why he was even talking to me. Julian rolled up to school in a sleek black BMW. I took the subway. When he saw my confusion, he explained, "My 18th birthday is in 8 months. That's when my trust fund kicks in." He leaned closer. "But I want it now. If I'm dating someone unsuitable, they'll probably offer me a deal to break it off. They think money solves everything." He said it like it was a punchline, like his parents trying to buy him was a joke. "You in?" I stared at the cash. $500. That's 2 months of rent for my mom. "When do I start?" His smile was different, not the usual rich kid smirk. "Tomorrow. I'll pick you up at 7 for dinner at my place." Then he walked off, leaving me with 5 crisp bills and no clue what I'd signed up for. The first time at his house felt like a setup. The driveway stretched forever, lined with manicured hedges. A marble fountain with koi fish glinted in the evening light. I counted 7 cars each, a different luxury brand. His parents were waiting in a formal sitting room. "Mom, Dad, this is Amara," Julian said, grabbing my hand. His palm was clammy. "My girlfriend." His mom's smile vanished. His dad's eyebrows shot up. "Yo," I said, instantly regretting it. His dad cleared his throat. "And what do your parents do, Amara?" Straight to the point. "My mom's a teacher," I said, skipping the part about her second job as a waitress. Didn't mention my dad bailed when I was 9. His mom's lips tightened. "Charming?" After that awkward introduction, Julian laid out our routine. Pick me up every morning, hold hands in the halls, we need to sell this. He even made me a TikTok account so he could tag me in posts. But by week 2, something changed. He'd trace circles on my palm while we talked, probably for show, but it felt real. We went to a party at his friend's mansion with a pool the size of a small lake. He stayed glued to my side, introducing me to everyone. "This is Amara," he'd say, like I was more than just the plan. When some jerk made a crack about my thrift store jacket, Julian shut him down. "At least Amara earns her own money. What do you do besides burn through your dad's?" The guy went quiet. Then Julian's phone pinged. "My parents saw us today," he whispered, showing me the text. "They're pissed." His hand found mine, warm and steady. "Let's find somewhere quiet." We ended up on a terrace overlooking the Chicago skyline, lights sparkling like grounded stars. He wore a simple gray hoodie that probably cost more than my mom's car, but he made it look effortless. "3 months till my birthday," he said out of nowhere. He turned to me, standing too close. "Amara, I need to tell you something." My heart skipped. This was it. The fake dating had turned real for him, like it had for me. "What?" I asked, barely breathing. He bit his lip, looked away, then back. "My parents want to meet us tomorrow, both of us. They've got a proposal about my trust fund." My stomach dropped. I bit my tongue, tasting blood. The meeting was in their dining room, all dark wood and crystal chandeliers like a courtroom. His parents sat across from us, a stack of papers between them. "Amara," his dad began, "you seem like a sensible young woman." I nodded, throat tight. "We'd like to offer you something," his mom added, her smile sharp as glass. Julian's hand found mine under the table, squeezing hard. "We'll pay for your entire college education. Any school, any degree." My mind blanked. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. "In exchange," his mom continued, "you end this relationship today. No contact." I looked at Julian. He was staring at the table, jaw tight. "And," his dad cut in, "Julian can access his trust fund early if he ends it himself." Silence swallowed the room. Julian's hand trembled in mine. "The choice is yours, darling," his mom said. Julian shot up, his chair scraping the hardwood. He grabbed the papers and tore them into pieces, then smaller, until they were confetti drifting onto the rug. His mom gasped. His dad's face turned purple. Julian didn't stop until the papers were dust. His mom tried to speak, but he was already storming out. I followed. We drove to my apartment in silence, his hands shaking on the wheel. Inside, he called his older brother Ethan on my phone since his parents had started blocking his number. He put it on speaker. Ethan picked up after 3 rings. Julian's voice broke as he explained they were trying to get him kicked out of school. Ethan paused, then said, calm but firm, that he'd help, but we needed to document everything. That night, Julian couldn't sleep. He stared at the cracked ceiling of my bedroom, tracing the stains with his finger. At 2 a.m., he whispered he'd never been without money. Didn't know how to be broke. I pulled him close and said we'd figure it out together. He cried into my neck until dawn. A week later, Lena, who owned the diner where I worked weekends, pulled me aside. She'd heard about the drama small-town vibes in a big city. She offered me extra shifts, saying I'd need the cash now that I had a guy to look after. Julian insisted on coming to work with me. He showed up in designer sneakers and got grease on them trying to bus tables. His perfect manicure chipped, but he kept at it. Lena watched him fumble with a tray and gave a nod of approval. 2 weeks later, his parents showed up at our apartment. My mom was at her second job. Julian's dad, Robert, barged in like he owned the place. His mom, Catherine, scanned our tiny living room like it was contaminated. Julian emerged from my room in one of my old hoodies and jeans, and Catherine's face twisted. "This is beneath you, Julian," she said. He didn't flinch. Robert stepped toward me while Julian was packing a duffel bag, whispering that he'd ruin my life, every job, every opportunity gone. He had connections all over Chicago. Catherine added they knew people at every university in Illinois. I'd never get in anywhere. Julian grabbed his bag, and we left. The next day, Ethan texted to meet at a cafe in the Loop. He slid a folder across the table, bank statements, emails, proof. He explained their dad had been dodging taxes for years. Their mom had been forging charity donations for clout. Insurance, Ethan called it, if they escalated. Julian stared at the papers, then at his brother. Ethan shrugged. Family's messy. 3 days later, Julian got a job at a taco stand in the mall, minimum wage plus tips. He came home smelling like cilantro and grilled onions, exhausted, but grinning. He dumped $38 in tips on our kitchen counter like it was gold, counting it twice. We fell into a rhythm. School, work, homework at my cramped table. Julian helped me with physics since he was a math whiz. I taught him how to stretch a dollar. My mom started bringing home extra food from the school cafeteria, basic stuff, but it kept us going. Julian learned to love tater tots. Then school got rough. The principal called us in separately, then our teachers, then our friends. Someone claimed Julian was being manipulated, that I was using him. The counselor, Mrs. Larson, asked Julian if he felt safe with me. His face flushed. He knocked over his chair standing up, saying the only people he'd ever been unsafe with were his parents. He slammed the door so hard the diplomas rattled. Later, we learned Mrs. Larson's husband worked for Robert's company. Of course. At the subway stop the next day, Julian grabbed my arm, nodding at a black SUV parked across the street. It had followed us from school. We took 4 different trains, doubling back, and lost it in a crowded mall. My mom called that night, voice trembling. Catherine had shown up at the school, claiming I was ruining Julian. Mom told her she'd file for harassment if she came near me again. Catherine laughed, saying we couldn't afford a lawyer. The next afternoon, Julian scrolled through old videos on his phone while we sat in my room. Every birthday, every ski trip, his parents were either distracted or fighting in the background. In one, his dad missed his cake cutting for a conference call. 3 weeks after their offer, Lena pulled me aside at the diner. She couldn't give me more hours orders from corporate, tied to Robert's firm. My shifts dropped from 25 to 0. Julian offered me money, but I refused. We were parked outside a cafe when Ethan called, voice frantic. Julian's parents were filing for conservatorship, claiming he was unstable. If they won, they'd control his life until he was 21. Julian dropped his phone, staring at the dashboard. The next morning, the school office called him down. A psychiatric evaluation request, signed by a judge, had arrived. He had 72 hours to comply, or police would escort him. Ethan called it their end game. We spent hours at the library digging into conservatorship laws. Julian found a case about his cousin Lily, who dated someone the family disapproved of years ago. Same playbook, same lawyers, same outcome. Lily hadn't spoken to them since. The night before the evaluation, Julian practiced his answers in my mom's car, hands shaking so bad he tucked them under his thighs. Mom made him chamomile tea and told him to be honest. The evaluation was in a sterile office downtown. His parents brought their own psychiatrist, a bald guy who kept checking his phone. They had a thick folder photos of Julian at my place, claims he was rebellious, rejecting family values. The neutral doctor, Dr. Patel, took Julian into a room alone. 2 hours later, he texted me from the hallway. "She's asking about us." My hands were too sweaty to text back properly. I just wrote, "Stay strong." 5 days crawled by waiting for the report. Julian couldn't touch my mom's cooking, just pushed it around his plate. He'd lost so much weight his jeans hung loose. In chemistry, he zoned out, staring at the whiteboard. Catherine kept leaving casseroles outside his door, but they went untouched. The report arrived on a Friday. Julian's hands shook as he opened it in my apartment while his parents waited at their lawyers. Dr. Patel found no mental instability or manipulation. Julian was competent, but a note mentioned family dysfunction needing intervention. His parents appealed within hours. That weekend, Ethan showed up with a USB drive. He'd recorded their parents' conversations for weeks, his phone hidden in his bag. The recordings captured everything: bribes to school officials, Catherine admitting she'd accessed Julian's medical records through a hospital contact. Ethan's face was ashen as he handed it over. Julian hugged him so hard I thought he'd collapse. We took it to legal aid on Monday. The lawyer, frazzled with files everywhere, listened to the recordings and said we had a case, but warned their money could drag it out for years. 6 weeks passed in a haze of filings and meetings. Lena's brother, a paralegal, found a clause in Julian's trust. If the trustees acted against his interests, control could shift to a third party. Ethan's recordings were proof, but his parents hit back, filing a restraining order claiming I was a threat. The judge granted it without hearing us 500 feet apart at all times. No shared lunches, different routes at school. A security guard tailed Julian. He started recording every parental interaction, uploading it to a hidden cloud drive, building our case. My college acceptance came in April, a full ride to Northwestern for biology. I'd bled for that scholarship. Then the financial aid office called, saying it was under review for character concerns. Julian's parents had reached the admissions board. Ethan let us meet at his studio apartment near campus, a cramped space barely fitting us 3. He kept apologizing to Julian for not fighting their parents sooner. Julian squeezed his hand and said it wasn't his fault. 2 months after their offer, the school scheduled my expulsion hearing. Julian's parents brought 3 lawyers in identical suits. Our legal aid attorney showed up late, her blouse wrinkled. The board already seemed swayed. Julian sat in the back, scribbling notes. His parents sat up front, untouchable. Then the door burst open. Ethan wheeled in a cart stacked with boxes, his boots echoing. He dumped folders on the table, bank records, emails, recordings. The board members paled. Julian's mom stood, her chair tipping. His dad's face reddened. Ethan held up a folder. "Proof of my parents' bribes." His voice rang out. He spread out more document statements, USB drives. The board president's hand shook as he read one. Their lawyer typed furiously on his phone. Julian gripped my hand, his nails digging in. The president stood, announcing the hearing was postponed indefinitely for evidence review. Outside, Robert grabbed Ethan's arm, hissing, "You're done with this family." Ethan yanked free. "I've been done for years." He walked off. Catherine cried, her lawyers scrambling. Back at my place, Mom made tacos with discount tortillas. Julian smiled for the first time in weeks, eating off chipped plates. "We're winning," he said. But we knew it wasn't over. The next morning, Julian's bank texted his trust fund was frozen. Ethan's too. He showed up at our apartment with 2 bags and a laptop. Our 1-bedroom was already tight with 3. Now we had 4. Mom took the couch without a word. Ethan slept on the floor with thrift store blankets. We made it work. 10 weeks after their offer, Julian started getting sick migraines so bad he couldn't see, vomiting daily. He'd lost 12 pounds in 2 weeks. The clinic doctor blamed stress, handing us mindfulness pamphlets. Julian tossed them out. Ethan suggested going public. We posted on Reddit, Instagram, X, everything. The story of wealthy parents weaponizing money. We shared Ethan's documents. Post hit thousands, then millions of views. Strangers shared similar stories. Cut off for loving the wrong person, for being themselves. Support flooded in, even small Venmo donations for food. Julian's parents found out within days, sending a cease and desist letter, then suing for defamation, demanding we delete everything and pay for their reputation. Our lawyer shook her head. We needed better representation or we'd lose. That night, Julian sobbed, saying he should take their money, let me live normally. I'm not worth this. We fought hard. He smashed a mug. I kicked a dent in the wall. Mom and Ethan stayed in the kitchen, pretending not to hear. The next morning, a lawyer called, offering pro bono help after seeing our posts. She specialized in trust fund abuse. At a cafe, she reviewed Ethan's evidence and grinned. 3 months after their offer, she filed our countersuit. Breach of fiduciary duty, emotional distress, fraud. The recordings, bribes, threats. Catherine laughing about ruining a nobody's life were damning. Their lawyer blanched. A reporter called for a comment. Someone had leaked the story to ABC7. By noon, headlines screamed, Tech heir's parents try to bribe girlfriend. Robert's company stock tanked 3%. Julian showed me his calendar, each day crossed off in black pen. 5 months until his birthday, each hour felt like a year. Catherine stormed the school where Mom worked, yelling she'd ruin her. Security escorted her out as students filmed. Mom's boss told her not to worry. They'd handled rich bullies before. Our lawyer found a game changer. Julian's trust was set up by his grandmother, not his parents, with rules to block Catherine's control. Julian got promoted to shift lead at the taco stand, framing his first $200 paycheck on our wall. Then Thomas Langston, the family's lawyer for 25 years, defected. He brought boxes of documents saying Julian's parents had crossed every line. His grandmother would have been horrified. A hidden clause let Julian claim the trust early if his parents acted maliciously. We filed an emergency court request. The judge read our evidence harassment recordings and said no parent should weaponize money against their child. Ethan texted updates from their house. His parents now slept apart, Catherine blaming Robert, Robert blaming her. Their perfect facade cracked. Julian's nightmares worsened. He'd wake at 3 a.m., drenched, clutching me, dreaming they'd won, dragging him back, me gone. I'd hold him, whispering we were close to freedom. The court date hit fast. Their 5 lawyers dwarfed our team Sarah, our pro bono attorney, and Thomas with his folders. The judge had read everything: threats, bribes, sabotage. Catherine testified first in a tailored suit, claiming she was protecting Julian from opportunists. The judge cut her off, asking why she'd bribe me if I was the gold digger. She stammered, fake tears falling. Robert admitted to hiring a PI, contacting Mom's boss, smearing me to colleges. He called it family protection. The judge's face hardened. Julian testified, playing recordings of their schemes cutting his college funds, planning to send him to a reform camp. His voice held steady, but tears streamed down. I went last. Sarah asked when I fell for Julian. Before the money, I said. Why fake date him? He was desperate and I needed cash. When did it turn real? Week 2, when he held my hand, and it felt like home. Julian sobbed. The judge took a week to rule. 7 days of Julian barely sleeping, checking his phone obsessively. Sarah called. We won. Julian got his trust fund. His parents lost control and owed legal fees and damages. Outside the courthouse, Catherine reached for Julian. He stepped back. You're still my mother, she said. Julian stared, then said, Parents don't do what you did. You're just people I knew. We went home to Mom's meatloaf. Julian stared at the bank papers, $10 million like they might vanish. Mom piled extra on his plate, rubbing his back. That night he couldn't sleep, worrying the money would change us, make us like them. I reminded him he was the guy who scrubbed taco grease, ate off-brand chips, chose me over millions. The money was just numbers. He was still him. 2 weeks later, Julian spent days on his laptop, then dragged me to a lawyer's office. He signed papers for the Horizon Fund for Teens Escaping Toxic Families, sliding a $1.5 million check across the desk. The lawyer's hand trembled. Julian shrugged, saying others needed what we had hoped. That day, Robert's board ousted him. His company's stock plummeted 15%. Catherine's nonprofit faced audits after her fake donations surfaced. Their empire crumbled. Julian leased a modest apartment near Northwestern, a one-bedroom with a lake view. He kept his taco stand job, saying it grounded him. Ethan's trust fund was restored. He opened a legal clinic for financial abuse cases, hugging Julian, saying, "You showed me how." My scholarship was reinstated, no explanation. But Robert and Catherine's influence was gone. Mom cried when I told her. Julian started therapy with Dr. Patel in a plain office. He'd leave sessions drained, saying he needed to unlearn normalizing their control. 4 weeks post-trial, Catherine showed up at 1 a.m., drunk, dress ripped, banging on our door. "You ruined us!" she screamed. Julian called 911, hands steady. Police arrested her for violating the restraining order and public intoxication. Neighbors watched. Robert filed for divorce days later, blaming Catherine for their downfall. Their perfect family imploded publicly. We visited his grandmother's grave in Wisconsin, a simple stone. Julian knelt, thanking her for the trust's protections, leaving lilies her favorite. 6 weeks post-trial, we settled into normalcy. Sunday dinners with Mom and Ethan, Julian tutoring kids at a community center, me acing biology. We shopped for groceries, paid bills, did laundry, normal life, no fear of eviction. Their divorce filings hit the news, each accusing the other of fraud. Julian read it blankly, gripping my hand. Old friends reappeared. Emma from his prep school apologized for ghosting him. He forgave her over coffee. 2 others watched him tutor, then apologized for fearing his parents. Julian was kind, but drew the line when Chloe, who'd spread lies, showed up with a sob story. He shut the door in her face. Lena's diner promoted her to manager after Julian's shifts drew curious customers. He got us an extra paid day off. 2 months post-trial, his foundation helped its first kid, a girl cut off for her identity, now with an apartment and tuition. Julian cried, saying it made it all worth it. At graduation, Mom and Ethan cheered as Julian crossed the stage. His parents' seats were empty. He called them his real family. Weeks later, he sold his BMW for a used Toyota, planning a road trip through Michigan and Ohio motels, diners, no luxury. He was radiant. At a diner in Traverse City, we saw Robert, graying, alone with coffee. He stood, said, "I'm sorry," and waited. Julian stared, memorizing him, then walked to our booth. Robert left. Mom got promoted to lead teacher, inspired by Julian's fight. Ethan's evidence triggered an IRS probe. Robert and Catherine faced millions in penalties, selling assets to stay out of prison. Julian read the news once, then tossed it. At Northwestern, he chose psychology to help kids like him. A letter from Catherine arrived, begging forgiveness. Julian burned it in the sink, smoke setting off the alarm. A year after their offer, we celebrated at that same restaurant, ordering cheap burgers. His foundation had saved 20 kids with Thomas's counsel. Ethan won a case for a boy whose parents controlled his savings. Robert's arrest for fraud and Catherine's license revocation made headlines. Julian hung up on a reporter. In February, Julian spoke at a conference on financial abuse, saying money isn't love. Control isn't care. The crowd stood, but he shrugged off the spotlight. We studied in our apartment, him cooking ramen, me writing lab reports. He laughed, remembering when he feared this life. On his 18th birthday, we ate store-bought cake with Mom, Ethan, and Lena. He'd donated half his trust to charities, leaving plenty. He raised his soda, toasting his real family. The next morning, I woke to Julian making tea in my oversized shirt, humming off-key. He smiled, real and unguarded. We moved through our tiny kitchen, cooking eggs, saying "I love you" like always. Outside, Chicago buzzed classes, jobs, dinner plans. Normal. Exactly what we fought for. Exactly what his parents never believed we'd choose. Perfect.